realize that Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin both wanted the Exodus theme on the seal of the United States of America? Ben's choice of image was the Pharaoh drowning in the Red Sea, with the motto, "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." Whereas Tom liked the added imagery of Israel following a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Obviously, their Judeo-Christian patriotic minds love such biblical themes. Which brings us to the current day, 250 years later. Americans are quite content with money and power. Most have not even heard of such stories, let alone revere them like our founding fathers. This is sad. And so is having to accept the academic, archaeological world out there spewing misleading messages that Israel never even left Egypt. This is why I had to make a foundational video that shows, number one, there's absolutely no way the Red Sea crossing was here, but rather over here. I, as a patriotic citizen of the United States, in the same spirit of Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, show why the Exodus is not only true, but why the crossing of the Red Sea was an epic event through a deep sea and not wading through a puddle that the many Egyptologists would have us believe. The 10-day march towards Etham was large and wide, but once God gave the command to change their direction, that southward turn made things change rapidly. The wide path narrowed, and as Israel escaped through the gorge, the speed had to pick up, and this would have caused Nuweiba Beach to fill over several days as the fleeing congregation made their way down the 70-mile winding wadi. Here, unique logistics of movement as seen in large armies on the move appears to be much like a long serpent uncoiling, where it would take days for the tail to reach the head. But once you accept fact number one, with the crossing here, then it is real easy to see the next top 10 truth of the Exodus. And that truth is Mara is here. It's a real oasis, and it's only 25 miles from the crossing site. Both the approach to Mara and the oasis shoreline could accommodate a large crowd. We find that there are two smaller wadis that intersect this main wadi in a perpendicular manner, which, before the highway was put in, made an effective dam. This would have created a significant lake 3,500 years ago after rain would fall in the above watershed. So cruising into Al Sharaf, it's a convergence of three main wadis. Yeah, just rolling into Al Sharaf, the most likely spot of the Bitter Spring Mara, based on the convergence of the wadis, the elevation, and the current wells. I've estimated that it most likely had almost 4 miles of shore to rapidly serve the thirsty throng. No other Mara candidate even comes close to matching this one when the Bible is used as your guide. Yeah, just driving into the massive old lake bed here. You can see the flood wall in the distance. This thing's at least a mile long. Yeah, Andrew, he got photos of water last spring when it rained hard. But anyway, we'll check it out. All right, made it to the flood wall here at Mara, current day Al Sharaf. And there's still some water here behind the the reservoir. When you see it in the distance, it doesn't do this place justice. I mean, when you're actually here, it's massive. Wow. Yeah, it has the appearance of a dried lake bed. You get the caked muck. It's dry now. This tree, of course, fits with the legend. This is the largest wadi in northwest Arabia, and even today it is a real oasis with minimal rain. I truly believe that this fits perfectly with Genesis 15:22, where it says, Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. So the first day was on the shore celebrating. The second day was marching to that vast plain. And then the third day, they were going up that hill and looking around in that valley and found no water. I was so impressed that I made 5 videos to support this discovery. The first video points out that the distance covered to reach the water is equal to the modern marathon, 25 to 26 miles. I go on to correctly define what bitter water means and how this site fits the definition. The next video adds drone shots of the oasis from above to reveal the size and access points. I list 7 important reasons that prove that this is the correct site. Then in Marah chapter 3, I take great pains to reveal the amazing health message found in Exodus 15 verse 26. This message was spoken at this site. Marah chapter 4 deviates somewhat from the Exodus, but it is very interesting how this particular Marah health message was combined with the gospel during the early days of the Seventh-day Adventist Church from 1880 to 1910 in the now famous Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan. I show how, unfortunately, John Harvey Kellogg went on to sabotage this message, and it split the church due to his heresy. Next, a complete calendar of the Exodus from Egypt to Sinai is shown. The timeline of 45.25 days based on the moon cycle has perfect alignment with the path that Moses wrote about. Marah figures into this path twice because the congregation was chased backwards from the wilderness of Sin by the Amalekites and drove them into the safety of Rephidim. Then after staying there a week, they continued the few miles to Marah and then up to Mount Sinai. This important point is attacked by those who support the southern route theory, which brings us to point number 3. This southern route is fake. It has been proven to be false. You can see the reason for this in my video entitled Rephidim to Sinai at the 4-minute mark. Even though this bogus route is implied as doable by Dr. Glenn Fritz in his book Sinai Mysteries, he seems to run with the idea that Israel somehow got over this 450-500 foot cliff face, whereas at the same time, he gives ample eyewitness testimony to the contrary. He can only be categorized as one of the many double-minded Bible commentators out there. I suspect he felt obligated to do so only because he doesn't believe the Split Rock area could actually be Rephidim. He also had to expand the Horeb region almost to Al Ula as to include this route. In ancient historical reality, the route was a dead end. Again, it is not passable unless you have a sturdy animal or you yourself can hike up a steep slope. Today, we find a very dangerous modern highway that has been carved into the steep sloping mountain face. You find that there are many aggressive anti-speeding measures in place because this is where so many people have died from going too fast. One has to wonder how a scholarly guy could toy with this path being part of the Exodus. Well, again, Since he concluded that the Split Rock area is too small to accommodate the crowds of 1 to 2 million, he had to find a new Rephidim. This led him to consider the southern route as a way to get the Exodus crowds to a rock formation called Albatra, which is far from the actual Horeb region and is also easily discredited as fake. In actual truth, Rephidim, or what some call the Split Rock area, is a site that would have 8 miles of waterfront access when water flowed from the rock, and this impressive topography could have then easily accommodated 2 to 3 million in rapid fashion. Andrew Jones showed me this area in 2019. Later, he sent me high-altitude drone shots and told me to read my Bible again. He didn't have to say more because the major discovery about what I'm talking about became obvious after carefully reading the scriptures again. So after that, I made a third trip to thoroughly view and analyze the amazing topography of the Rephidim site with water flow in mind. Okay, here's the key strategic point. This is where the water had to round the curve to get to the people. Right here. This is what I want to check out. You can see the evidence in my 2 videos. The first, the Walk of Moses, Rephidim Revisited, and then a year or so later, the Hidden Canyon of Rephidim. Now, the next top 10 fact of the Exodus is that Elam is real, and it fits perfectly with the current day Al-Bad area. This is only a 3-day journey from Mara, and it's all downhill. A river runs through it. Here's me standing in that riverbed just north of town where Israel would have entered. Yeah, that would have been totally awesome to see water flowing through here like any other city back then. Yeah. But huge waterway. And again, there's Mount Horeb and Sinai. And at the time of Moses, there would have been thousands of date palms for shade, since the area had to be awash in water. Moses records in Exodus 15, verse 27, that there was plenty of water and date palms. This is the same massive watershed that feeds Mara, Wadi Ifal. I suspect Elam looked like this date farm in El Ula. Sadly, the dates would not have been ripe yet when Israel went through this area towards the sea. They typically ripen around June, and they were here earliest late March, April. I believe it's foolish to argue whether Elam includes a tiny grove of date palms over here, or whether it's just Magna here, or only the Albada area where we find the Well of Moses. The answer is all of it. Let's look at these 3 spectacular spots again. I love the baby Elam. I mean, there actually was 70 palm trees and 12 wells. It was unbelievable. And then Magna, a natural spring coming out of the ground. Dates to eat. Beautiful setting. Bubbling there here from Elam. Look at that green grass. These date palms are everywhere. Just look at them falling on the ground. There'll be plenty of grass for goats, sheep. It's cool. And then lastly, downtown Albada. It would have been something to see a river running through it. Date palms need water close to the surface, so obviously the water table has dropped dramatically since the time of Moses. If you want to hear more about Elam and the Exodus history here, watch my video from the Well of Moses to the Wilderness of Sin. Now on to our next top 10 fact of the Exodus, which is day 30 of the Exodus fits perfectly with entering the Wilderness of Sin. And that spot is right here beside Elam. This was 2 days after visiting Yam Suf, the Red Sea, for the second time. If you don't believe me, check out my timeline in my 1.5 moons to Sinai video. Remember, they left Egypt on a full moon, and then one cycle later, or 29 days later, they entered the wilderness sin on the following full moon. It was then that God performed the miracles of quail and manna out here on this flat plain. And this plain is where we find present-day Neom. Which brings me to point number 6. The Amalekites came from the south to attack. It was springtime, and they were heading north to cool off and raid the crops. Even if you believe that the Amalekites came from the north, then you have 2 problems. 1, access to Rephidim would then be blocked. 2, they'd be chased to the impassable southern route. So because the southern route is fake, and because Rephidim is up here, there was only one direction that Israel could go, and that is north, back to where they came from, back to where there is a sure supply of water along Wadi Ephel. Then, since this is our only option, we come to number 7 and our top 10 facts on the Exodus. Dovka and Alush are identified as being between the wilderness of Sin and Rephidim. With much thought, I placed Dovka here, just east of Elim, and Alush about 10 miles up the wide Wadi Ephel, where a large convergence of 3 wadis are noted. Watch my video, Dovka Alush, to the gates of Rephidim. Once you understand day 1 of the camping there at Rephidim and the path of attack, you will fully understand the walk of Moses, and then the next day, the decisive battle that took place here. Remember, and when fighting a superior opponent, be like Joshua, who fought hard and trusted in God's help. Now on to number 8 in our top 10 best of the Exodus countdown. The Sinai Horeb area has all the elements spoken of in the book of Exodus. It's all there. There is over 17 square kilometers of room near the mountain. If we use the tent city people density as found in Mina, Mecca, during the Hajj, that much space could hold 2.5 million people. There is a stream that descends from the mountain. This stream flows right beside the altar. Yeah, so this is where the altar was. And there's water would come right down there. There's petroglyphs that depict sacrifice right over there. Here's the cattle chute, and then again the 12 pillars, the remnants of them. You find a natural stage and amphitheater at the south gate, where the Golden Calf Festival was held. It was here that the entire nation of Israel lost their membership in the planned royal priesthood. Only the tribe of Levi were deemed worthy to be part of the priesthood. Why? Well, let's read the text. So he stood at the entrance to the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." And all the Levites rallied to him. Reading on, Exodus chapter 32, verse 26. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And Moses said, "Today you have been ordained for the service of the Lord." If you read this passage carefully, you find in verse 26 that Moses stood in the entrance gate of the camp. Then in verse 27, the Levites were told to get their swords and go to and fro from gate to gate throughout the camp, and each of them were to kill his brother, his companion, and his neighbor who worshipped the calf. This was divine judgment. This was emergency measures, but it was true obedience to God. The Levites clearly showed their zeal for God's holiness. It showed how we are to oppose even close relatives who are sinning and put God above family. Jesus spoke of this in Matthew 10, verse 37. My point here is that there are natural gates at Sinai. Moses spoke near the south gate. The Levites had a lot of ground to cover. So to understand this further, we have to imagine that two groups of Levites split up. One ran very fast to the plain to seek out the fleeing idolaters heading towards the eastern gate. The other group took off north to slay the majority, trying to escape through the north gate. I suspect the Levites were able to cut them down near that gate, as Moses commanded. It thus makes total sense that the cemetery that many suspect contains these 3,000 souls' remains are now laying here beside the north gate of the wilderness of Sinai. Sinai has an impressive 70 meeting site. It is 1,000 feet above the regular camp. It has water, furniture, and a pulpit. I love the group of rocks that tower over the altar and camp. They evoke great themes found in Scripture. We find that the true summit of Mount Sinai, that is the western peak, is far enough away from the camp that both Moses and Joshua would not have been able to hear the golden calf revelry until walking back from that valley between Sinai and Horeb. There are caves and water in this valley, giving support for Joshua staying here the 40 days while Moses was on the mountain. Oh, and I forgot to mention that on the summit there are some clefts in the rock where a person could find shelter. I photographed one near the top on the east side and another one on the west side, which brings us to Exodus point number 9. The valley between Sinai and Horeb fits perfectly with the burning bush account. I personally saw a shepherd with his sheep in this valley. And when you stand near a natural oasis in the northern portion of the valley looking at Sinai, you truly perceive this as the place where Moses encountered God and took his shoes off. Lastly, point number 10 deserves a second mention. The split rock area of Rephidim is real and could accommodate a large crowd.
Going right to the trade route, and that's the trade route from this area that goes to the promised land. So it's like everything just perfectly matches up.
We're exiting the vast plain, 1,000 acres or more from Mount Sinai. They could have umpteen million camping here. And this, Ellen White says this is the only exit through the Black Hills Gate. We're heading east. The sun is setting. So we're leaving the plain, man. This has been amazing. Yeah, it's totally cool. Made it here to Mount Sinai, right in front of the tablets, the cave, and the stream that descends from the mount. Totally awesome. So I got a big day ahead of me walking around.